Will you marry me? It was a slip of the tongue. A nervous, unscripted flub by Kayla, the wedding officiant. Laughter rippled through the pews. The guests thought it was a joke, but my groom didn't laugh. Hunter's eyes rimmed with a sudden, violent red. His entire frame trembled, a leaf in a storm. I do. The next second, he shattered the world. In front of everyone, our families, our friends, the watching cameras, he grabbed Kayla's wrist. He didn't look back. He didn't look at me. He dragged the woman, who looked 70% like me, out of the chapel doors. And then, the mechanical, genderless tone of the voice echoed in my skull. Seduction mission. Failed. Host slated for termination. Life expectancy, 3 days. Will you marry me? I do. When Hunter choked out those words, the red in his eyes looked like an open wound. The silence in the hall was absolute, a vacuum where oxygen used to be. He didn't care. He turned his back on me. He gripped the hand of the woman in the white dress, the officiant, who wore my face better than I did, and walked out. It was my wedding, but I stood there like a statue in a museum, watching a tragedy happen to someone else. My blood slowed to a sludge. Despair didn't hit me all at once. It seeped in, cold and heavy. It is over. The voice sounded almost human, almost regretful. That is Chloe, Hunter's first love, the one that got away. She left him 10 years ago to study abroad. Now she is back. Your mission has failed. The vacuum broke. The hall exploded into chaos. Guests whispered frantically. The other staff shouted for order. My friend screamed curses at the empty doorway. Scumbag. Bastard. How could he? But to me, the world was underwater. Muffled. Dead. Yeah, it's really over. My mission failed. And now I'm going to die. I spent 10 years conquering Hunter. 10 years carving myself into the shape of a woman he could love. I stayed by his side when he was a nobody with empty pockets and a head full of dreams. I watched him climb from the gutter to the boardroom, becoming the chairman of the largest conglomerate, 8 in the country. When he was broke, I simmered porridge for him in the middle of the night to soothe his stomach. I picked him up when he was blackout drunk after brutal business dinners. We shared a single cup of instant ramen because we couldn't afford two. I thought presence was the ultimate form of love. I thought I had finally forced my way into his heart. But looking at the empty aisle, those 10 years felt like a punchline. A sick, twisted joke. The first love is invincible. She didn't have to cook. She didn't have to suffer. She just had to stand there, extend a hand, and Hunter followed like a dog on a leash. I am sorry, Eden. The voice carried a frequency of inexplicable melancholy. You have 72 hours remaining in this world. I tried to inhale. My lungs felt like they were filled with wet concrete. Heavy, solid. A hand gripped my arm. My best friend. She rubbed my back, her face twisted in fury and pity. Eden, it's okay. That piece of trash doesn't deserve you. I shook my head. I couldn't speak. If I opened my mouth, I would scream, and I knew I wouldn't be able to stop. I signaled for the guests to leave. I pushed away the comfort of my family. I needed to be alone. I walked out of the venue, the hem of my pristine, white custom gown dragging through the dirt of the parking lot. I raised a hand and flagged down a yellow cab. Earl, the driver, looked in the rearview mirror, his eyes widening as he took in the bride without a groom. The ruin in my face. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It tasted like iron. Earl, take me to Pigeon Point. Pigeon Point. That was where I met Hunter. That was where we started everything. There's a dilapidated rental apartment there. A shithole with peeling paint and drafty windows. It holds every beautiful memory I have left. My clock is ticking. 72 hours. I want to die there. Earl didn't say a word for a long time. Maybe it was the sight of a bride fleeing a church, her white dress acting like a beacon of disaster. In his rearview mirror, when the cab crunched to a halt at Pigeon Point, I reached for my phone to pay him. Earl covered the meter with a calloused hand. Put it away. He turned, his face etched with a rough, fatherly pity. Listen, sweetheart, don't let it eat you alive. As long as you're still breathing, there's nothing you can't survive. It's not the end of the world unless you're 6 feet under. I didn't cry when Hunter dragged his first love out of the chapel. I didn't cry under the suffocating weight of 300 staring guests. But this stranger's kindness? It was a sledgehammer. Earl drove off, tires kicking up dust. My knees hit the gravel. The air left my lungs in a sharp, jagged gasp. My chest seized. It wasn't just sadness. It was a physical blow, a cramping spasm deep in my solar plexus. I clawed at the fabric of my dress, trying to manual start my heart. He said there's nothing I can't survive. He's wrong. I'm already a walking corpse. I forced my legs to work. I stumbled down the muddy path until the familiar concrete skeleton loomed out of the fog. Building B, second floor, apartment 203, the architecture of our struggle. This was where Hunter and I survived our hardest 3 years. I dragged the hem of my Vera Wong, now heavy with brown sludge, up the stairs. I jammed the key into the lock. It fought me. Click, grind. The rusted metal screamed as I forced the bolt back. The door across the hall swung open. A head popped out, gray rollers in her hair, suspicious eyes narrowing. Then recognition flared. Eden? I forced the muscles in my face to contract into something resembling a smile. I nodded. The door flew open. Mrs. Miller rushed out, wiping floury hands on her floral apron. She grabbed my freezing hands in her warm ones. Lord have mercy. You remember me? Mrs. Miller. I used to live right next to you two kids. How could I forget? Back then, Hunter and I worked until we were zombies. We'd stumble home at 2 a.m., too exhausted to boil water. Mrs. Miller would catch us, drag us into her kitchen, and force-feed us leftover casserole until we felt human again. She held my hands tight, launching into chatter. Where's that handsome boy of yours? Hunter, you two finally tie the knot today? She stopped mid-sentence. Her eyes dropped to the mud-caked lace of my dress, then up to my ghostly skin. The bloodshot scara of my eyes. The silence stretched, thick and uncomfortable. She blinked, then patted my back with a heavy, grounding rhythm. It's all right, baby. It's all right. Men, there are plenty of fish in the sea. You just rest. I've got nephews. Good boys. Accountants. I'll introduce you. I swallowed the scream building in my throat. It tasted like bile. I managed a weak nod, mumbled a goodbye, and escaped into apartment 203. I closed the door on the world. The room was exactly as we left it. Tiny, suffocating, a double mattress on the floor, a desk coated in a thick layer of gray dust, and him, a giant, human-sized panda plushie slumped in the corner. This was it, the sum total of everything Hunter ever gave me. I sank onto the bare mattress. My fingers brushed the synthetic fur of the panda. The dam broke. I gripped the toy's paw, my knuckles turning white. I squeezed the internal trigger. A voice box, slightly distorted by time, crackled to life. Don't cry, kitten. Hunter was wrong. Don't cry, kitten. Hunter was wrong. The loop played over and over, mocking me with a ghost's apology. Chapter 3. The plushie's LED heart stuttered. A cheap, dying strobe light. The mechanical voice ground out its loop, distorted by static and time. I remember when I got this thing, our first birthday together. I had spent 6 hours hand-rolling pasta, the flour settling into my pores. I sat at the table, watching the candles burn down until they were just puddles of wax. He didn't come home. He stumbled in the next afternoon. His eyes were red-rimmed, his suit rumpled, carrying the exhaustion of a man who had run a marathon. He shoved the panda into my arms. An apology gift. For you, he mumbled. I was so happy. I hugged that synthetic fur, like it was spun gold. I was an idiot. I didn't know then. The recording didn't say, don't cry, kitten, or whatever pet name I convinced myself I heard through the static. It said, don't cry, Chloe. That day wasn't just my birthday. It was hers, too. He hadn't been working late. He had spent the entire night running from courier to courier, trying to air freight this panda over seas to her. But the cheap